thank you for taking the time out. We've been meaning to do this for
years.
3-4 years now. I think we showed Midnight Swim at UF2.
What was that, 2017?
I don't know. The years blend together now.
This is our 5th year of UF, and this was year 1, so 5 years.
Was that year 1 or 2?
It was year 1.
I mean, this is research we should have done before we got her on here, but
that's why we're going with year 1.
But yeah,
where's the festival? Where's it located?
San Francisco.
Cool.
Yeah.
Is that where you guys are?
Yeah. So Russ is a San Francisco native, and I've been here for about 10 years. So, and just like any San Francisco native, we should have left by now.
Yeah,
but we're still here.
Yeah, you haven't been priced out yet.
They've tried, Sarah. Oh, they've tried.
Well, last week we did get a notice that our rent went up again.
Also,
so
yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, they are
coming for you.
Trying. And all the theaters are going away too. We're lucky that we're friends with all the program.
Death of culture.
Oh yeah. Oh no, you put that correctly, because all the we have a really weird dynamic here where people on the street are either like probably tech millionaires or, living there. And it makes for a really weird art culture.
Just the kind of society we want.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, but we get
the haves and the have-nots and no one in between.
Yep. No, well, we're here still.
I like to consider us upper lower class. That I feel like that's a good area. The middle class is dead, so we're upper lower class.
Yeah, and
that's how I'm painting that picture.
Yeah, so we've carved out a little refuge where we both show elevated genre movies that we call found footage films, and low budget oddities that we call found footage films. You had one of the few movies that when we have this umbrella and we say everything is like the Blair Witch Project, when people walk away having seen The Midnight Swim, they're like, I didn't know this genre made these kind of movies. And you're like, articulate that idea a little bit more. And they're like, oh, I mean, like good, or like a dramatic with characters that we can enjoy. And I know we got short time today, so I just want to jump right into this and ask, why was The Midnight Swim a found footage movie, or like in-world camera? Like, why did you choose that narrative?
Sure. I guess I was really interested in trying to tell a story from inside a character's head. And so I didn't really think of it so much as a found footage movie in the, like, here's the box of tapes and it's here are the artifacts that you imagine some imaginary editor found and put together. I think I was just interested in like having a camera mediate reality for somebody who's not totally comfortable with reality and who's using the camera as her eyeball, so that we could almost like be in her brain. And I don't even know, honestly, if the character June in this movie, if there's tape in that camera, like she might not actually be recording anything. But we're just like seeing the world through her eyes. And then there was the practical consideration of like, we had no money for the movie, and there was something that like allowed that movie to happen because we chose that genre. So it was a little bit of art, a little bit of practical consideration.
Yeah, that's always sort of the calling card there is, it's pretty cost effective in that end. But, as far as the festival goes, like, again, I just want to reiterate what Russ said, is that we pretty much used your film as sort of the ringer of the situation of, we knew the quality, we enjoyed the film, and, it's not necessarily counter programming, but when a lot of our films are, having to do with gray aliens and some sort of creatures and home invasion and things like that, and now we're bringing this dramatic drama.
Yeah, I wonder how that gelled with your audience. I know the reaction I get with this film is pretty like starkly divided. Half the people say nothing fucking happened, and then the other half say they had like a more transcendent kind of spiritual experience of it. But there, it's like, I think if people go in expecting Blair Witch or a horror found footage movie, I think then they're waiting for that monster to come out and grab them, and then, but I don't know, maybe I'm wrong. Did your audience, did they walk out? What was the walkout rate?
0%. I tell you, it scored very well, and people really, really enjoyed it. And I'll take a part credit of that as, I'm host of the festival. So I try to lay down the groundwork there and say that, we're
Nice.
going to a different area.
Well,
And
also part of the whole found footage thing is, we are in the middle of the Bay Area in San Francisco, and until a week ago, we used to have 22 theaters per square
oh,
mile.
Sarah, the theaters are falling down
Yeah,
here.
but we have kind of a weird mixture of culture in theaters too. We have a large casual audience, and we also have a very snooty film articulate audience that will go out to the pier and watch a movie, a 45-minute movie on gears turning. We have really avant-garde
Mm.
crowd, and found footage kind of fits right in the middle because we're looking at storytelling through a brand new narrative, and nobody really ever talks about it that way. So when you
Totally.
say,
Lowbrow, highbrow.
yeah,
It's
and
very clever.
we don't take ourselves too seriously either. So when we
Mhm.
sneak into Midnight Swim, people kind of leave emotionally moved.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, that's
and
awesome.
we also don't have a lot of female filmmakers in found footage, and usually when we're dealing with a domestic cast, it it usually ends up with the police there, and it's a lot of domestic violence because found footage has a lot of voyeurism in there where
Oh, yeah, interesting.
yeah, but I had to ask right off the bat because you also have a VHS tape play a part in the movie, and I was wondering if you
Oh,
actually
shit, yeah, I do. Yeah.
yeah, and I'm it's weird. I can't tell if we have the regular situation here of an incredibly talented filmmaker who has no money, or if we're actually playing with narrative and format. But it
Huh.
sounds like the
You know
latter.
what? I'm not that smart. I'm not that smart to have tried to comment on found footage in general with the VHS tape. I did that because I liked the idea both in Midnight Swim and then also my second movie, Buster's Malheart. I got really obsessed with this idea of being able to talk to the other side or, to another world through a screen. Um, it's kind of what I'm doing with June and her camera anyway. And then I like this idea of that's how we meet mom was through uh yeah, the mediation of the screen as a this window into another world. So I don't know. I just got really obsessed with that idea, and I think I'd take it even further in Buster's Malheart, where there's a lot of stuff that's really important that happens on screens within the movie.
Now I'm
A lot of
embarrassed.
weird public access.
I'm embarrassed to say it, but right now when we were sitting down, I was like, "Wait, what the hell is Buster's Malheart?" Because
Oh, dudes,
I just watched Birds of Paradise, and I was like,
that's a
"Man."
weird leap to take from.
Actually, you know what? I was kind of all set up to give you this a tour theory and be like, "Oh, what's up with your
Oh,
family life?" Because we got a lot of sibling relationship stuff going on here.
oh,
But then I'm like, "Wait,
oh,
there's a whole nother movie in here that I haven't seen."
yeah. Go see Buster. Yeah.
And wait, you got Rami
Um,
Malek in there too?
Yeah. Yeah, that was another super low budget. Wasn't as low budget as the Midnight Swim, but was still ultra low budget. It was before Rami was Mr. Robot hadn't come out yet. And he is just absolutely fucking fantastic in it. And it was a similar process to the Midnight Swim in that Midnight Swim we improvised off of a robust outline, and it was the same with Buster. Where it's a deep collaboration between me and the actors, and it's not fully scripted. So it has a kind of has a very, I don't know. I love that. I love both movies, but they have a quality of surprise to them just through the nature of the process of it not being fully scripted.
Were you a fan of found footage at all? Like in-world camera?
Not really. I mean, no, I should say I am, right? Because I'm on your podcast and
No.
stuff, but
No, that's
not
fine. Yeah.
really. I don't know. I couldn't name that many. I just my friend, who would play, who was hugely influential for me, it was my friend Daniel Stam. He made a movie called A Necessary Death. Do you guys know that movie?
No.
What? And you call yourselves a found footage festival?
People
I am
screw
going to
us all the
shame you
time on
so
here.
hard right
You're
now.
the brains, I'm just the face.
It's an excellent movie, A Necessary Death, and you should go see it immediately. He went on to do The Last Exorcism, which is
Oh, of course.
super well known. You call that found footage, right? Yeah, right.
Yeah.
You know what? I think I've been in a
Yeah.
room with them because I was at a premiere of The Last Exorcism in a, oh God, Comic-Con? I think they showed it in a theater nearby. Yeah.
Okay. Well, it's an amazing movie. He's an amazing, super smart filmmaker, and he was the one who, because before I made The Midnight Swim, I had been trying to make these other movies that were, I don't know, I guess I had planned to shoot them more traditionally, not with found footage, and they were fully scripted, and they kept falling apart. And Daniel was the guy who was like, I hadn't made my first feature at that point, and I was getting really depressed. And he was like, you just need to go make a micro budget found footage improv movie. Just go do it. Just go get your first feature out of your system. And so I really have him to credit for that. And watching, I think, his movie A Necessary Death, probably, and The Last Exorcism, I think also at that point, were probably like clues for me to be like, okay, I think I can make a movie this way too. That's the extent of my found footage knowledge.
I mean, it's not unfamiliar. I make this argument all the time that we kind of have nested our show in the horror community, and early on we were trying to like undo stigma around the genre. But really, at the end of the day, it's kind of a lot of film fans, like people who just enjoy the medium, that come to found footage. And that's why I think like so many people didn't get Unfriended, because it's just such a different kind of format and presentation. But there's a weird community out there that's into found footage, and it's just scattered. That's why we've never heard of A Necessary Death. It's just we got to like bring them all
it's
together.
So good. I wonder, I can't help but wonder if one of the reasons found footage appeals to us on like as an audience on a visceral level is because now so much of our lives happen on screens. Like we're all filmmakers now, and so there's something that feels very like just at visceral and at the fingertips, and really like, yeah, I know it always adds a layer of reality to it, you know, because it feels like documentary. But then there's also just something to the fact that we all kind of feel like we're directing our own found footage movies as we go about our lives now.
Yeah, I used to just chop it up to.
I tried to be so insightful there, and I don't think it worked.
No, you did. Okay, here's the thing. Before doing this, I'm like, I fucking hate talking to filmmakers like Sarah. You're so talented. You're probably so dialed into film that we have to come in here and be like little pretenders again. Are you, dude? Birds of Paradise. That's a fucking. That's like a.
I'm very excited.
That's an incredible film.
Loved it.
Thank you.
So when
Thanks,
I thought when you went in my head, when you went from Midnight Swim to Birds of Paradise, honestly, I was not shocked. I was like, Midnight Swim. That's a masterpiece film too. The performances you got out of the cast, the way you used the medium, and what I was gonna say, like that was a very intellectual statement you made. I always thought it was just my ADD. I'm like, I'm bored. So when I watch a Disney movie and a character comes on screen, we've got like 100 years of film under our belt. They've already told me what's about to happen for the next 10 minutes.
You can predict everything. Yeah.
Yeah. But in your film, when you have a character operating the camera, if she zooms in on something, that's you're translating part of the story through that one camera action, and you can ignore it.
That was that was the best part about making The Midnight Swim. It's cool to be talking to you guys right now, because my mind has just started to like have a craving to make a POV film again. In my mind, I think of it as POV or something, maybe more than found footage, but like I almost want to make a POV TV series or something, like there's just something that just feels so intimate, and you really get to know that character behind the camera in a way the camera becomes an actor.
Yeah.
So I miss working that way. It was really super satisfying to do on The Midnight Swim. And I liked it because it created all these rules in a way that were really welcome obstacles to the artistic process. You guys ever seen, there's a Lars von Trier strange movie called The Five Obstructions?
Lars von Trier.
I just wanted to sound really smart and geek out with you and drop a obscure film name. But anyway, the point of that film was it's been a long time since I've seen it, but he basically creates these rules for this other filmmaker to follow. And I think the point being that these obstructions, sometimes when we give ourselves these obstructions, it can be really freeing. So there's something actually, instigating creatively about having the the rule of being in a character's POV.
So is the 5 obstructions part of the Dogma 95 stuff, or?
Kind of
I
sounds
don't
weird.
know. I think it was like I feel like he broke out of that, right? Like,
Yeah, I'm pretty sure everybody did.
I think this was yeah, exactly.
Nobody's gonna put Lars.
This was after that, I think.
Well, it's funny because early on,
Exactly.
when I was really trying to convince people that I was smart, I would always compare found footage to Dogma 95, and I'd be like,
Oh,
"Hey, you
well, yeah.
yeah," because there's a lot
The
of parental-
celebration, right? Oh,
Yeah,
Yeah.
and the thing is that we've created all these rules with found footage, and early on with the Blair Witch, the audience almost seemed like they show up just to watch them break it, and then be like, "Oh, this is fake. Go to hell." And I'm glad we've gotten away from there.
You're saying the audience shows up to watch you break the rules?
They do.
Was that right?
Yeah. Well, with
Yeah.
found footage, honestly, I don't know. When you put it that way, it almost sounds like they're cheering you on, like break the rules. They show up to and they're just ready to shit on you. Like, oh, you
yeah.
had background music. This isn't real. You suck.
Right.
And it's like
right.
yeah, honestly,
no, it was interesting. I felt that a little bit when the Midnight Swim was first released. I think it was more. There was so much going. There was like so many found footage movies that, in a way, I think people who love found footage kind of dismissed it because they were like, "Oh shoot, I'm about to say a spoiler." So anyone who cares about that, stop listening.
We have that problem regularly.
Okay, whatever.
That's what we do here.
Anyway, so there's that moment in the third act where the camera moves itself.
Mm-hmm.
And so for people who were like sticklers about found footage, I remember I got a lot of flack for that. And then the other half, people who like didn't like found footage to begin with, kind of dismissed the movie because they're like, oh, it's found footage, therefore it's somehow, they sort of use that derisively as if it therefore meant it was low quality. So it's been like really cool, I think, to have a re-release now and to be able to, I don't know, it feels like now is almost a better time for the release of this movie than when it first came out. And I guess it was 2015, I think. So it's been exciting. I feel like found footage as a format has had a chance to shift and grow and to like just become part of the culture and not be this thing that everybody's either like taking a stance for or against. It seems much more like it doesn't have to, be
okay. Can I just
be the thing that divides us anymore?
Can I complain?
Get in here. Get in here, complain.
Okay, that's a stupid statement. If people are complaining about that camera moving, because honestly,
all right, to be fair, in our early days when we were first starting this, we were sticklers for a lot of things.
Yeah.
Remember, we rejected a film because of BGM.
I remember.
And then 2 years later, we were like, that's a really good movie. We need to show it. And we broke, and now we realize of how.
And the director came over and got drunk and passed out on
said
a couch.
It was the best night of his life.
Yeah, no, but I'm going to complain because it's not even like a technical rule breaking. Like if you have a paranormal movie and a ghost moves your camera, that's in world. That's
fucking cool.
Now, here's the thing. The beautiful thing about Midnight Swim is you don't know why that camera moved.
Yeah.
And you could argue about that, but to argue that you broke a rule is you're not watching the movie.
Yeah, fucking nerd.
All right. Yeah, you idiots.
Exactly.
Sarah,
when I was...
Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say I remember there was a moment, there's always a moment in editing any movie where, at least for me, you lose your fucking mind all the way. And you really and I'm like in a fetal position on the floor. Who knows how many hours have gone by. And my husband comes in and taps me gently and is like, do you need a water? But for me with the Midnight Swim, it was I started to get too analytical about the whole found footage conceit, and had forgotten that I approached it with a sort of looseness and just wanting to tell this emotional POV story. And I remember there was a moment on the Midnight Swim when I was deep in post where I was like, none of this makes sense. Maybe there does need to be a box of tapes. And how did, and you started to I started to try and intellectualize everything and make it all have this kind of the receipts and the logic of a found footage movie. And then the more I did that, the worse the movie got, actually, And so I was like, wait, I need to go back to why I chose this in the first place, which was had nothing to do with there having been some sort of box of tapes, I just was like, I just wanted to get in a character's head. And once I let that happen, the edit found itself.
Yeah, it's interesting because with your film, it doesn't feel like it should have opened with the prompt where it's like the police found this VCR on the side of the
Yeah.
road or anything.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
really more because it's like a very like serious drama. It feels like fuck, all this shit is happening and she's recording it. Like this
Yeah.
ugly family moment is now being recorded. And
Yeah.
it was weird because it's really like one of the only films in this genre where it really felt like the threat of the camera was in the moment, not like
Mm.
not some relic of like a mass murder or
And
anything.
how
Mm.
scripted was the Midnight Swim?
So like I said, we were improvising off of a 25-page outline. So it was robust in the sense that like the structure was there
Right.
and the beats of the scene were there. The characters were, pretty fleshed out. But then yeah, then the actors and I just like really dove in together, and so some stuff is really improvised, and like magically so. The performances are really amazing. One memorable scene in the movie is when everybody's been like drinking at dinner, and then they end up going into the mom's room, and they take turns trying on the mom's clothes and doing impressions of the mom. So I think that's a really good example of like how our process creatively works. So for that, I had gone like shopping at thrift stores and like found different items of clothing that I thought would be in the mom's closet, and I put them in the mom's closet. And then I said, okay, so we're going to shoot the scene. I want each of you to go in, take turns one by one, put on something you want to wear from your mom's, and come out and do an impression. And that was it. And that was like that was the prompt. And that's the scene that you see is what we shot that night. Just me given that prompt, and then just working with the actors and observing what they were doing, and giving them little bits of feedback here and there, but also just really wanting to be a fly on the wall and watch this like family life happen.
So, Sarah, like and that speaks on my next point here is from what we've seen, and one of the mainstays in all of the films that you have is a strong cast. So, what's your process there of getting these people? Because again, I imagine that Birds of Prey was a little bit more scripted than your previous two. So,
Yeah.
but still, that chemistry was there because the two leads you have in there, unbelievable. And so,
Thank you.
what's the secret there?
So Birds of Paradise was fully scripted for sure. So like it was definitely a different process than the Midnight Swim, but no less. I, I don't know. I guess every actor is very different, so I don't. There's not like one process, I guess, but I do try to like form a really deep trust with everybody, and to kind of have like I want to make sure it feels like a workshopping environment where everybody feels really safe to fail.
Yeah.
And I think that that's the most important thing, because because I want to feel safe to fail too, because I think it's really important that that everybody feels like they can take risks and try something and fall flat on their face and like still be loved and not kicked out of the tribe in some
Sure.
way. Like
Yeah.
that's like our basic social need.
Right.
So I really feel like that's kind of the first step for me in directing. And then it just becomes really about the material and the story and getting things wrong, and like just trying to find moments of silence. And also just then like on the day when we're actually shooting, um, I just try to really show up for the actor, let them know they're going to be in really good hands, let them know that I'm going to be, editing it, usually myself, and like I'm gonna make sure like I'm never gonna make them look bad, and I try to make sure that they know that so that they can just really go all the way, and then I don't let up on them, and I push them till I get till they get to where they need to get, and so yeah, try to do that with just as much like care as possible. And sometimes I try to, have different techniques, but sometimes it's also a matter of like going there with them, because some emotions can be really scary. And so like knowing that they don't have to like to hold those with them and not feel like they have to do that alone can be helpful too.
Now, when you make a ballerina move,
Oh, God.
what's the research process on this? I mean, did you do a lot? Do you try to figure out how ballerinas walk and
Yeah.
talk when they're not performing? Like, all that stuff.
I took karate as a child.
There it is.
And I was not karate, and I was also not great at it. But so I did not take ballet as a child. So I decided I can be like a Paquito method about directing, I suppose, where like I like to try and like do the thing myself. So like when I directed Hannah for Amazon Prime, I like went and took like fighting classes. And so with the Birds of Paradise, I did sign up for ballet class, and it was humbling. Like it is so much harder than the fighting classes I took. It is like ballet is, I think ballet should be an Olympic sport. I actually think it would be riveting as an Olympic sport. It's probably like one of the most athletic feats on planet Earth. It's really
No question.
pretty astounding. And I was terrible at it, but it gave me great empathy for because I was gonna, the two lead actresses were not ballet dancers and had to go through really crazy training. So I wanted to at least
They pulled it
tell
off.
them, be able to say thank you from like a true place in my heart, like having known at least a little bit of what they're going through.
Was that part of the casting process where you guys were looking for ballerinas at some point, or I mean, ultimately just trying to make it work either way, and wasn't you got to carry a movie here in the process?
Birds of Paradise was a slightly different project for me in that Christine Froseth and Diana Silvers were attached to the project before I came on. Like the book was given to me by their managers who were producers, and they were like, hey, would you ever want to adapt this for these two actresses? So it was a little bit different in that I wrote the parts for them and knew full well that they weren't ballerinas, and that, you can't make a ballerina overnight, but that they were willing to go into training. And then, so then I was like, well, if my two leads are not ballerinas, then I'm going to make sure everybody else I cast is actually from the ballet world. So then all the other people in that movie are actual, professional dancers who have never acted before. So it was pretty cool, actually. It was really interesting and different to work with, people who had never been on camera in a movie before, and then more seasoned actors, but who had never danced before.
Now I'm reading 50 books a year. That's my new goal.
It's not going to happen.
And I'm about to round the sixth one up right now, so I'm on pace. Now I might be cheating a little bit with comics and stuff, but now I'm curious. I think I'm going to read this book. How close is the movie to the novel?
Oh, so Birds of Paradise is an adaptation of Bright Burning Stars. It is, I would call it 32% similar.
Right.
Good. Shaquille
They're both in the world of ballet, featuring best friends. You should read it. Tell me what you think.
I totally.
I mean, there's
will.
a vibe. I definitely like jumped off the vibe, but then went a little, crazy. Did my own thing.
Now I did lead you to a bear trap here, because I'm curious what elements were important that you picked out. Because with comparing this to Midnight Swim, I've noticed a couple of themes.
Here we go.
Yeah, so I'm curious what elements, like, because I've heard like Hitchcock. I've read stuff that he read where he's like, I read a book until there's something that inspires me, and then I just take that and I shut the book because it doesn't matter anymore.
Yes. Oh, I didn't know that he does that. Yes, that's what I do. Oh, I mean, I'm basically Hitchcock, basically. Yeah.
That's what we've said in this house.
I mean, better.
Yeah. No, well, I in Bright Burning Stars, so do you remember in Birds of Paradise, Kate tells M that story of how the stars were formed?
Yep.
So that story that's not in the book, but it was a story that I grew up like being told around the campfires, just like from Colorado, and I think like camp counselors would tell that story around the campfire, different versions of it, but it was always like a story that resonated with me. And when I was reading Bright Burning Stars, the book, I kept thinking about that story, about like how the stars were formed. And I'm always interested. It's actually, this is relevant to the Midnight Swim. I'm interested in characters who are striving for the impossible. And like in the Midnight Swim, June wants something completely impossible, which is, her mother is gone and she wants to find her again.
Yeah.
So she wants to sort of bridge the worlds and go find her again. It's an impossible desire. And yet Jacques Cousteau famously said, impossible missions are the only ones that succeed. And
Beautiful quote.
that's my, I feel like my motto as a storyteller. I think I really am interested in characters who go after it anyway.
Well, what was the impossible goal in Birds of Paradise? The prize?
It was, I think for Kate, it was like greatness with a capital G. It was like achieving some kind of stardom. And I think I was interested in whether one, like, can you achieve the highest heights in whatever career path it is that you choose? In her case, it was ballet. Can you become the prima ballerina of the, Paris Opera Ballet, which would be like the creme de la creme, top gold prize or whatever in the ballet world? Can you achieve that and still be a good person? Or is there a necessary compromise along the way that you make?
All right. Now, because we have Sarah, everybody should go watch Birds of Paradise. But I gotta talk about like the third act in here. It's so interesting hearing you say that because I thought you actually had a little. Okay, first off, I had no idea. Like the mental picture I was getting of you after watching this film, I'm like, oh, is she like some super intellectual bilingual who lived in like Paris for a while and is making some deep commentary on like our work ethic in America? Because now I had thought you were doing something where like twins and siblings are a big theme in here. And I thought we had an American twin couple. And one was like motivated by art and the other was more of a monetary thing, which I was going to bring up because of Midnight Swim too. We both have characters who have in the background their like family home is gone or is disappearing. And I was like, are you making some harsh critique on like American like tunnel vision when it comes to work? Because Kate goes out there and you're rooting for her because she's our protagonist. But at every turn, she's given us clues like Kate kind of fucking blows. Like,
what kind of books have you been reading?
Well, do you get what I mean? Because look at the end. Go ahead.
I'm really excited for you to watch Buster's Malheart, actually, because I think you're going to get the narrative you're hungry for in that movie.
Are you saying I'm projecting all over your film?
No, I think that you're maybe there's small threads of that. I'm interested in class for sure. And there's some small threads of that in both Birds of Paradise and maybe a little bit in the Midnight Swim, but there's a much larger thread of it in Buster. So you should go check that one out.
Well, kind of like the people who we follow along in both stories with Midnight Swim and Birds is a character who's kind of unsure of their journey. In the background, they're both losing their family home and they don't feel as connected to everybody around them. So it kind of feels like you just got to hold on to the only thing you know, which might be like this crazy goal. You also have these cool, like oral story, like folk elements to both.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
I do. Yeah.
Yeah. So how do
I
you
like
grow
stories
up?
within stories.
I'm like, what was your family life like?
Oh, well, I will, both in the Midnight Swim and in Birds of Paradise, the stories within stories, the kind of legends that you hear at the center of the stories, those are sort of autobiographical. And like I said, in Birds of Paradise, I grew up hearing that story around a campfire. And then in Midnight Swim, the story of the Seven Sisters was a story my mom told us growing up as a cautionary tale so that we wouldn't try to save a drowning person because they might pull you under. And I was always like really haunted by that story because how could you not try to save somebody that you love from drowning? Like there's something it's really harsh to not try and jump in to tell your child don't try and save a drowning person. Um, so yeah, that was just I think that became the theme of the Midnight Swim of like especially in the relationship between the sisters, like June, this is not the first time June has had I don't know what you want to call it, like mental breaks like this before. She's really like put her sisters through the ringer before, and they have to make that decision of like, do they try and save her or do they let her go and not try to save the drowning person? So it's a real tragedy because of that.
Can I ask you, while we're talking about June, where did the like eating alone thing come from?
That was just something that came to me really early on about her character. I remember, so when I gave the scriptment that we worked off of, it started with just character descriptions and then the outline of the movie, and that was just something that was like really early. I felt like once I learned that about June while I was writing, I was like, okay, I understand who she is, and I think it comes from like a person who was never fully at home being alive to begin with. I had a therapist who once told me that um, until the age of like 5 or 6, kids choose whether or not they want to be here until they reach
Oh,
the age of reason. They're still deciding whether or not they actually want to be here. And I was like, June is a character who never fully decided, who like kind of never was fully here. And something about eating is just so primal. It's like you're masticating in front of people and like you're using your animal teeth to like gnash and break down the sun that has changed forms, and it's a very you're watching digestion, and I think she found it very grotesque. To it would be like the equivalent of having people watch you take a shit, so like she couldn't eat in front of people for that reason. She just was not fully at home in a body.
yeah, man.
I had a coworker that couldn't eat in front of people because he has a very small esophagus, and he would choke all the time, and he didn't like choking in front of people.
He was like
And then we had a work dinner, and he choked
Caused
in
too
front
much
of us all, and he
worry.
was in a bathroom for 45 minutes. Randy, cut that out.
No, that's what an incredible detail to give a character, especially when like one of the easiest way to like connect with somebody is to break bread. Like let's sit down and share a meal. Like it's one of the smallest things you could do for somebody, and instantly become endeared. And it's so rough, like because I rewatched the movie last night, and I'm like, man, it's brutal watching her sit at a table and not eat.
Yeah.
Something
It's
about
very
that,
lonely.
yeah, it's rough. I, man, it's incredible. I wish we had a larger voice because people need to watch Midnight Swim. I feel like found footage is kind of like, it's trapped in a horror umbrella when really it's just a way to tell a story. Because, you look at mockumentaries and there's so many comedies. And like earlier, you said you want to make a POV film. I would call like Hardcore Henry anything where it's just a point of view. You don't actually.
First found footage movie, not a horror film.
Yeah, that's true.
There's David Holtzman's diary.
Yeah. And it's like, I really, it's so easy to connect to characters when you're like literally like embodied in one, like with June. And your movies they're rough, they're heart-wrenching. I don't know.
Thank you guys. Well, you guys are super cool, and you're actually inspiring me to want to watch more found footage. What will you give me like top 3 recommendations? What should I go watch?
I'm so bad at that.
Give me one. How about one?
I mean, do you
One
want
each.
One. Now, okay, what kind? Do you want a faux documentary? Do you want a horror film? Do you want a POV film?
Do you want
I
something
just want a good
light and
movie.
fun?
I'm just hungry for a good movie.
All right.
What are you looking at me for? Give her one.
I'm thinking.
So normally when we talk to people, they're horror fans. So they're kind of like in the back of their throat saying, scare me.
I'll give one, you give one.
Okay, go ahead.
Noroi the Curse.
Okay. Writing it down.
It's on Shudder.
Here, do a Japanese.
It is essentially the procedural of found footage films. It's a 2-hour epic procedural.
Okay.
Yeah. The premise, that one is about a documentarian picking up where another documentarian left off. It's a Japanese film. Koji Shirashi. He's probably the best found footage director to have lived.
He's one of the more prolific, certainly,
but not because there's no like adulation. There's no audience here.
But in terms of his work, he's got like
he's
7 found footage features.
Dang, I was gonna try and stall.
Okay, wait, give me one more, and then I have to be super rude and go.
Yeah,
but give me one more.
All right. Well, why don't you do a? Okay. You want a heady one? I just watched one, and I think you have the intellect for it. I had a hard time hanging with it. It's called The Corroborators.
Okay.
Watch that one. It's a
Awesome.
faux history. It's like a retelling of fake history, but it's done very classy. And oh my God, it kind of shows you how a documentary can mislead you and be very convincing.
Oh, that sounds cool. That sounds really good.
Sarah?
You guys are awesome. I hope we'll meet in person one day and go save all the theaters. No pressure, but it's up to you to save all culture.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Overlook Hour. And if you would like to hear more, please subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or whatever your podcatcher of choice is. And while you're there, go ahead and give us a rating and or a review, which is a very easy way for you to support this show that we bring to you every week for years now, free of charge. And as always, you can find us on YouTube at The Overlook Theater, Instagram at The Overlook Theater, Facebook at The Overlook Hour, and Twitter at The Overlook Hour. Last but not least, you can send us your emails and tell us how much you like or dislike the show at overlookhour@gmail.com. And if you're nice, maybe we'll read them on the show. I've been your engineer, Randy Stat. Please join me along with Clark, Russell, and Oksana again next time. Bye.